I'm Frank Vaughn. It's August 10th, 2025, and let's just cut right to the chase today. The video title is Canadian Conservatives Suck Because They Do. Now, in fairness, it's not just Pierre Poilievre that sucks, although he is absolutely part of the problem. We'll come back to Pierre, actually. I changed my mind on the fly. This is just going to come off the cuff. Canadian Conservatives suck is the tweet from this morning. Doug Ford hangs out with Freeland and loves Carney. Was more than happy to meet with Mark Carney during the election. Never met with Pierre Poilievre. Threw Pierre under the bus. Even though Pierre is almost a carbon copy of Mark Carney, especially on foreign policy and his response to the United States and Donald Trump, acting as though Canada can extricate itself from its geographic, geopolitical relationship with the United States, as if that isn't the greatest asset we have going for us, is proximity to the world's largest economy, who have always been there waiting for us with a bag of money to buy all of our products. Irreplaceable. Europe can't do it. China can't do it. Neither one, even if they could do it, should be pursued by us because they're totalitarian hellholes. But that seems to be what Canada is all about. I've highlighted on this channel how our system is an authoritarian, top-down system. We have a monarch. We have a governor general. We have a government that's appointed, and the people you elect are sent home. Tim Houston's totalitarianism is an inspiration to New Brunswick liberals. So Tim Houston is more concerned with people hiking and fishing and kayaking and banning them from those activities than he is with crime on his street and rampant drug addiction. This is a so-called conservative. It's terrible. It's pathetic. And as you'll see, the Poilievre-led CPC has nothing to say about it, as Canadian charter rights are rode roughshod over again, because they're not rights. They don't descend from God like they do in the United States. They descend from government. And premiers and prime ministers can suspend your so-called rights at a whim. And even though they can suspend your rights whenever they want, whimsically, they wouldn't even give you fake property rights when they were crafting the charter. Everybody talks about sovereignty. I've said this before on the channel, but how do you not repeat yourself when the truth is the truth? This country was replaced in 1982. Everybody's talking about sovereignty. Everybody's talking about the American threat. They're going to take us over. We were already usurped and replaced in 1982 with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the so-called repatriation of our Constitution. This nation's bad. Quebec didn't even sign it. The big winner out of the Confederation is Quebec. They didn't even sign it. Poilievre is still doing the elbows up orange man bad thing. And what am I talking about there? Back over here. Coming this fall, like it's some kind of movie premiere, the Canadian Sovereignty Act. Conservatives will push to unlock an economic boom in our country by legalizing pipelines and other major projects, repealing Prime Minister Carney's anti-development laws, and rewarding those who take advantage of the opportunity. Just a bunch of mealy-mouthed talking points. The Conservatives voted with the Liberals to pass C5. What does C5 do? It rides roughshod over the autonomy of the provinces. The only game in town in Canada right now is the hope, admittedly a dwindling one, that one or two provinces in this federation will wake up and try and do something different. Either carve out an independent country and go their own way, or at least threaten to extract concessions without yielding power, or look south to the willing partners in the United States who have only ever buttered our bread. This is a north-south country. I've seen people do comparisons between China and Russia, saying that it's a comparable situation. And nothing could be further from the truth. If you look at China and you look at Russia and you look at their shared borders, there's absolutely nobody on the Russian side. And the Chinese side is overpopulated. Most of the Russian people live thousands of kilometers away nearer to Europe, which is why it makes more sense for Europe to buy their energy from Russia and do business with Russia and normalize relations with Russia and stop trying to get us into World War III. It makes geopolitical sense. This is the biggest problem in the world right now. It's that people are not obeying the law of geopolitics. We're not being realistic. Canada and the United States and our urban centers, our population density, share a relationship because we share a continent. Trade doesn't go east-west across Canada. It goes north-south. It goes north-south because of proximity. We can't fix that. There's nothing to fix. It already works. We need to embrace it. Poilievre has had every opportunity to deliver a message that no Canadian politician is delivering, that the Liberal Party of Canada has destroyed the best trading relationship and diplomatic relationship in the history of the world, and that it needs repairing. A diplomatic approach, a so-called Canadian approach. These are the things we used to do. We used to pride ourselves. Our flag, if you look at the maple leaf, and you look at the outline of the maple leaf on our flag, it's two heads coming together with their mouths open in conversation. There's symbolism there that nobody teaches you about. And I don't even like the flag. That flag was imposed on this country too. Nobody wanted it, but you got it shoved down your throat, and everybody's talking about sovereignty. You lost your sovereignty a long time ago. These guys, this Poilievre, he's talking about the Canadian Sovereignty Act to make us less dependent on the United States. It's just going to make us more dependent on China. It's going to make us more dependent on Europe. We don't build things anymore. Manufacturing used to be 30% of our GDP, and under subsequent conservative and liberal governments, it's reduced to below 10. We have destroyed ourselves. We gave away our sovereignty. These people. It wasn't just Trudeau. The Harper government did it too. And instead of providing a beacon of hope, instead of doing something different, they're just doubling down on sameness. The options that we have are just limited to who is going to implement and how they're going to implement the exact same policies. So what do we do with the United States? They're bad. We got to get away from them. And how we are going to do it is all there is to discuss. But anyway, back to the point. Poilievre voted for C5. Canadian Sovereignty Act, I'm willing to bet, will be more of the same. It will be a surrender and an abdication and a taking away from the provinces of their autonomy and what sovereignty they have, and concentrating it in the hands of our unelected government, because it is unelected. You elect parliamentarians, folks. You don't elect your government. That's why Parliament's been sent home and Carney is still ruling. Poilievre and his CPC hope to just gain those powers for themselves. And it sucks. There's no vision. There's nobody saying at this level, the Canadian people deserve an elected Senate. The Canadian people deserve the right of recall. The Canadian people deserve to make decisions by referendum. The Canadian people deserve a modernized system. No, instead, Poilievre, along with everybody else, looks back on the Westminster system with pride. So proud of what Canada is. I'm here to tell you there's nothing to be proud of. We're backwards. We're corrupt. We're a narco state. People say Trump's a bad guy because he calls us out. Because they deny, even though the streets are littered with people that you trip over. Kids can't ride public transit without seeing people doing drugs and meth and fent. Zombies everywhere. We're zombie land. And people say Canada doesn't have a drug problem. Internationally recognized for exporting drugs and death to the world. 100,000 Americans are dying every single year from fentanyl alone. These are war number casualties. And the American administration is trying to do something about it. They're looking at bombing cartels in Mexico. Now, the Mexican president has said no. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? They either got to send their military in there and kill these people, or the Americans are going to do it for them. There's 3.5 years left to Trump. He's quite powerful, if you haven't noticed. This idea. Travis Dryden, Pierre, you have not yet called out Canadians losing their rights to walk in the woods in 3 different provinces out east. Canadians losing their property because of leftist courts out west. Aren't you supposed to be the country's conservative leader? It sucks. He's losing his base. The very thing that he built up, which looked like an insurmountable, powerful lead going into an election, only to snatch defeat from victory. And ever since the election, he's just gone soft. Parachutes himself into Alberta, into the safest conservative riding in the entire country, and he goes and he tells the Albertan people there that sovereignty is stupid, that the idea of Alberta going a separate way is dumb. And I got problems with Smith. I got problems with Moe too. Everything that they do, everything that they propose, it's always inside the box of Canada. And Canada's the broken thing. Canada, the system. It is a sin. It's a sin. We've taken this geographic miracle of creation, this beautiful nation with its mountains, its plains, its Great Lakes, its resources. Could have been one of the most powerful nations on earth. And we've carved it up and we've gutted it and we've turned it into a corrupt narco state. It's a sin. The land under our feet, the people themselves could be so much better off. But the system, the thing that we call Canada, the government, the flag, there's nothing good about it. There's nothing redeeming about it. I literally can't say anything good about the system in Canada. It fails everywhere you look. It fails on crime. It fails on healthcare. It fails to deliver citizens their God-given rights. It fails to give people a proper voice. It fails to progress for all of the like Doug Ford's a progressive conservative premier. Tim Houston is a progressive conservative premier. We have progressives everywhere, but Canada, the system, never progresses. It stays exactly the same, and in fact, it's in a state of perpetual regress. East of Saskatchewan is a suck zone. There was some pushback on that, and it's appropriate because in Canada, no one's got any vision anywhere. Premier Smith's doing this Alberta Next stuff and going around listening to people, and there's applause and people are having their voices and whatever, but it's all in the context of the Federation. It's not about getting a better deal outside of Canada or getting a better deal for Canada or getting a better system. It's about how to manipulate the current system to just get a few pipelines built or get some energy projects built, which, by the way, will not provide any relief for years. All of this talk should have happened 10 years ago. While the world moves on, and they are, Europe cutting deals with the United States, Putin coming to Alaska to have a summit with President Trump, which I have high hopes for. While the world is about to learn about the truth of Gaza, there's so much else going on out there. In Canada, we're stuck in this doom loop, this cycle, where there's no vision, there's no bravery, there's no leadership. We're surrounded by politicians in a vacuum of leadership. As a conservative, Soundweaver says, the only party I have to vote for now is the PPC. The PPC is the purple piggy bank, okay? It's Maxime Bernier's private slush fund. It's legally construed. It's perfectly viable as a fundraising option, but it has no constitution. It has no people. You have no rights. It actually shares that in common with Canada. PPC people are in a cult. It is not an alternative. It's not a solution. It's garbage. And Maxime has no plan to make it anything but. There's no plan to win. There's no plan to get any seats. There's no plan to do anything except keep his wage and his expense account funded. Suckers. He was in the Harper government. He was industry minister. He was foreign minister. He helped kick the door wide open to the communist Chinese. He's one of the people who enabled the police stations on our soil. He's one of the people who enabled them to buy up so much of our resource sector. He's one of the people who invited them into this country. He said that Trudeau wasn't moving fast enough when he ran for leadership of the Conservative Party in 2017. He said that Trudeau wasn't moving fast enough to open the door wider to get a free trade agreement with China, which just meant Chinese capital buying up everything in this country. He was the most extreme proponent for China in this country. He was so extreme, he offended Stephen Harper himself. And he's supposed to be the hero that's going to save you? Time to wake up. Jason Price says, what is actually worse is that everyone is missing, or is missing that the lack of actual adherence to conservatism goes back many decades, right, wrong, or otherwise. The rules and laws being used in NS and here in New Brunswick are actually on the books and have been for an exceedingly long time. That's what Canada is. It's a totalitarian nightmare. People think they have freedom. Some socialist university will publish a list saying that Canada is one of the freest countries in the world. And people will share that list as though it means anything, as though it's not a piece of scarcely disguised propaganda. If the citizens have no rights that the government can't just suspend on a whim, in Tim Houston's Nova Scotia as well as New Brunswick, you're banned from hiking, kayaking, you can't use public land, you face fines worse than people who are addicts living on the street robbing people. Did you know yesterday, I didn't even mention this, and I knew it at the time, that those 16 people that were charged in the massive pot bust are all back out on the street, released on a promise to appear. They're all back out there. You stab somebody in Canada on the street randomly, you'll probably be released the same day. Meanwhile, they're focused on picking on kayakers. It's so extremely ridiculous. This guy says, won't change much, but I'm flying fly GPS to make it appear like I'm in the middle of the Nova Scotia woods. I wouldn't be surprised if the RCMP was dispatched to try and find this guy's fake GPS tag, because that's what we do. We misallocate our resources. We don't arrest criminals. We don't focus on crime. We don't do anything. We just pick on people trying to walk in the bush. You know, you can't even, you're allowed, and the government, the most absurd thing is the government of Tim Houston has said, you're allowed to walk on your private land. You're allowed to camp and kayak on your private land. You're allowed to. First off, you don't have private land. You barely even have title. You don't have property rights in Canada. All of your property that you think is yours is only yours at the whim of government. They can take it away. Anything. They can take it away anytime. Look what happened in BC, where they take people and homes that have been built and they just arbitrarily take it away and hand it. And the thing is, you know, we talk about the Native American issues with Canada. They don't even own the land under their feet. So first of all, the people who are living on the reserve, the plebs who are not part of the band, they don't get to own homes. They hold a lease. They pay rent to the band. But the band itself doesn't even own the reserve. They just hold it on behalf of the Crown. The Crown owns every single reserve in this country. Every single person, Native American, white, new immigrant, temporary foreign worker. This country is a miracle in that it's organized in a way that absolutely screws everybody. So you might hate the temporary foreign worker program. I do. It disadvantages people who are trying to get jobs. It's unfair. But it's also a new class of slave labor that all the so-called progressives in this country don't want to talk about. These people are manipulated, taken advantage of. They're often paid way less than everybody else. They have to work longer hours. And if they dare speak up to their very wealthy bosses, they're threatened with deportation. So not only are Canadians getting screwed, but the TFW is getting screwed too. Everybody's getting screwed in Canada. Except for the financial class at the top, the central bankers, the investment class, the foreign interests. Tim Hortons dares to campaign in front of Canadian flags, talking about Canadian pride and nationalism and everything else, and they're owned by a foreign entity. All the profits are siphoned out of Canada, just like so much else. Back when everybody was buying ketchup, French's, because it was Canadian, nobody seems to understand it's owned by Americans. It's the country, the people who were born prior to 1965, prior to 1960, they believe in a country that doesn't exist anymore. Most of them are so low information, and the conservatives and the liberals are fighting over that voting block. A voting block that in 20 years isn't going to be there anymore. And everybody's just going to be left with the mess, and it sucks. It's so disgusting, says Trust No One. But to be fair, even most conservatives are not conservative anymore. It's a dystopian nightmare that some of us are living in. Yeah, I'm one of those some of us. Even Smith and Moe are not conservative. They both bow to feds. And this is my problem with both Premier Smith and Moe. They don't think outside the box of federalism. They're not looking for the best deal for their people. They're looking for the best deal from Ottawa, the people who have been screwing them over. Every single premier of Saskatchewan and Alberta, and I've read the books, I've done the research, there's none that will think outside the box of Canada. Everything has to be done according to Canada. Canada, the institution that's been screwing these two provinces and opposing their development, opposing their prosperity. Every single thing, every bit of prosperity has been scratched and scraped against Ottawa's will, because we're supposed to just be territories that feed our money into the federal system so they can piss it away in Quebec. Every single premier. The only thing they're willing to think about is how to solve things within Canada. What they should be doing is looking for the best deal for the people themselves, wherever they can find it. And there's better deals on offer. There's better deals on the table. But they don't look at them. They don't talk about them. Everybody's afraid. Conservatives, that's why I say conservatives suck in Canada. They're all afraid. They're afraid to lead. They're afraid to tell the truth. They're afraid to argue. They're afraid of the press. They're afraid to do anything different. It seems the penalties for walking in nature is going up from province to province. Are we going to see a CPC response for clear constitutional violations? Not before they poll test it to death. God knows they wouldn't want to lose a center-left voter. So we vote for people. We vote people in to tell us what to do, or are they representatives of the people in their constituency? We vote for parliamentarians. They don't do anything. See, as I've said before, Parliament's not government. You don't vote for government, you vote for parliamentarians. The idea was representatives would go to Ottawa or go to your provincial legislature, and then they would appoint a government that would best fit the people. But that's not what happens. You see, the political parties and their organization filters out anybody with an original thought, filters out anybody that would think outside the box. So by the time you achieve a nomination to actually run in an election, and if you win, there is an expectation that you will rubber stamp the donors, that you will rubber stamp the investors, that you will rubber stamp the fund masters, the people who run politics, not your politicians, not Pierre Poilievre, the people that stand behind them in the shadows and are smart enough to never step into the spotlight. They just run everything from behind the scenes. If you don't do the bidding of the party organization, you'll find yourself kicked out of caucus. You'll find yourself kicked out of the party. Generally speaking, you don't get that far without being filtered out already. You get filtered out at the nomination level. If somebody real actually wins a nomination and won't kowtow, they just get booted out. The party does all the work to create the totalitarian shithole that we call the system of Canada. It's so bad. I wish people would tell the truth about it. It's so bad. It gets worse. Doug Ford, I'm translating, Doug Ford was bragging about 800,000 new residents when housing is unaffordable and jobs are scarce. And here it is down here. Derek, Doug Ford preaches globalist ideology. Repeat the lie enough times and people believe that without immigration, the world would come to an end. Is this something to boast about? Doug Ford, Ontario is the fastest growing region in North America, bar none. Last year, we brought in over 800,000 people, more than Texas and Florida combined. As I've highlighted on this channel, 5,500 housing starts in Ontario. I'm not going to do the math for you. Divide 5,500 into 800,000, see what you come up with. And this is the crazy part. This idiot, this traitor, this man who hobnobs with Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland and flaunts it openly, was reelected with 47% of the vote. There was never a better time to vote for a small party in Ontario. Never a better time. Or, as I said, leading into the election, vote for the Liberals. It's more honest. At least if you get Bonnie Crombie, at least she's more honest than this guy because he pretends to be different and provides the same. I still maintain that if Doug Ford lost in 2018 and Kathleen Wynne was elected, Ontario would be no different today. It might be a little gayer. That's about all. 800,000 people. And you know one of the miracles of this math? Housing crisis. People can't afford to live. People are living in parks. You got homeless everywhere. Every small town in Ontario. They keep Toronto clean. I was talking the other day about Nick Johnson, a YouTuber who goes around and just films how things are. Really goes to Toronto and he's like, wow, you know, it's not as bad as I thought it was because they load them on buses and they dump them in North Bay. They dump them in Sudbury. They dump them up at Elliott Lake and all over the province. Little towns like Belleville, Ontario are becoming hellholes because of the policies of Toronto. It's terrible. 800,000 people isn't a braggadocious talking point. And in the midst of this overpopulation, in the midst of cranking up the immigration, condo sales are at their lowest point ever. They can't sell condos. They can't get people living in this. So even though there's all these people with all this demand for housing, the housing market itself is collapsing. That's how bad things are and are only going to get worse with guys like Doug Ford. With no original ideas, no leadership. Driver DC says, you have very few effective leaders in Canada, in my honest opinion. Actually, the Bloc leader is the only one making sense right now. Can't believe I'm saying that. I can believe it. I've said much the same myself. The Bloc Québécois and Quebec in general are literally the only province in this federation doing it right. They never signed onto the federation in the first place. They never affixed their signature. And they've been holding us hostage ever since. They sit on top of a huge reserve of natural resources, and they don't develop them. They save them for when they're done extracting the wealth of Canada and they finally decide to break up with this beast. They've got all their riches. They got a great big bag of wealth, and they'll tap it when that time comes. Quebec's been doing it right. Why Smith? Why Moe? Why these premiers who flirt with vision but always seem to avoid it don't follow the Quebec model? I'll never know. Is it fear? Is it a shame for greatness? Is it this idea that doing anything new is it a fear of telling constituents how screwed they are, telling the truth, building an alternative, showing leadership for a different way of doing business? I don't know. Horse guy. There's another user named Piss Horse. They're two different people. Smith appoints Nigerian as top cop. COVID jabs still administered in Alberta. Are you sure it's that much better? And my answer was no, I'm not. I'm genuinely not sure it's much better. I live in Saskatchewan because it's the best of a bad lot. It really is. Because Alberta, you know, Smith says some nice words, but underneath the hood, there's a lot of things that she talked about during the last election campaign that she hasn't delivered on. And I know she's riding high in the polls, but I think it's more desperation than anything. We need to be pursuing a different deal. Calgary buys 120 electric buses. BC property owners find out they're on Indian land. Not much better out west. Yep, Western Canada has its problems too. In my honest opinion, Preston Manning was the only true conservative I've seen in my lifetime. He actually wanted to reform government to be more accountable and representative. He wanted to get rid of the Senate and have elected senators. If anyone wants to run as a true conservative, a true C, adopt his plan. Okay, would adopt his plan. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, Preston Manning actually had some ideas. And where is he now? Where is he now? Because Tim Houston is getting away with charter violating tyranny in Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and New Brunswick are now jumping on the authoritarian bandwagon. A so-called conservative, a progressive conservative, is inspiring liberal governments. They're looking and they're just like, wow, he's doing such great things. Let's do that. Let's stop people from enjoying their summer. Let's punish anybody. Anybody that's a tour guide or operating some kind of business, professional hiking, whatever, just screw them. They don't have business anymore. Just go home. And if they complain, maybe we'll just print up some more money. We'll feed into the inflation cycle. Does anybody notice that things aren't exactly getting cheaper? They tell you inflation's under control. What they don't tell you is that the inflation that you've already experienced, the price rises that you've already experienced, which haven't kept pace with your wage, are just baked in forever. There's no deflationary cycle. There's no return to cheaper prices. It's just baked in. So whenever they talk about 2%, it's compounding. Like inflation's compounding. Is there a way in this country that you're not getting screwed? It's not just the liberals, folks. It's the conservative movement, too. We don't have a conservative movement in this country. We got the Conservative Party of Canada that just wants to consolidate power in the hands of the federal government at the expense of the provinces and hope that one day they will gain access to it by kissing ass to the center left, which never works. But they don't figure that out. We thought maybe apple-eating Pierre was going to figure it out, but he's just getting softer and softer post-election. It's just the way it is. People might not like hearing it, but it's just the way it is. It sucks. Canadian Sovereignty Act, it's just another robbery. I can't wait to see it. It's the provinces are going to be giving up power. When he talks about legalizing pipelines and forcing it down the throats of the provinces, it's not about actually delivering prosperity. It's about removing provincial government's ability to do anything different, which is what is needed more than anything. Ottawa ain't saving us. We have to look to Regina, and we got to look to Edmonton. And I don't know. I'm not seeing a lot of vision. I covered on this channel all the different legislation that are nooses tightening around the neck of the provinces so that they are denied their ability to pivot and move and do different things. We're all being choked out while we hold town halls where everybody voices their opinions and vents off. But the government doesn't make any serious moves toward claiming real and lasting sovereignty following the Quebec model. And we have to keep talking about it. I think we're at a point now where we can't reward these people. Treating America like an enemy? Yeah, I read in the comment section, people are just like, oh, the orange man's pretty dumb. He's treating Canada pretty bad. Why? Because he's telling the truth? Is that why? Because he wanted to apply reciprocal tariffs? What does reciprocal mean? Do people have dictionaries anymore? You don't even need a dictionary. You got Google. You got Grok. People seem to know how to use Grok. They don't even think for themselves anymore. They just tag Grok and they're like, give me my opinion. Grok, counter this argument for me. And then they're like, see? Language models have replaced your brain. It kills me. Reciprocal tariffs mean Trump charging us what we charge them. Punitive tariffs mean we're bad actors. We're a northern narco state. He's telling the truth about that. And we deny it. We act like it's not happening. We act like belligerent, I've already sworn in this video, we act like belligerent assholes. Canada is one of the most arrogant nations on the planet. Truly. We got the biggest chip on our shoulder, and yet we're the weakest player in the room. We have no military. We have no real sovereignty. They defend us with their nuclear umbrella. They defend us with their military. A Cessna gets hijacked, or whatever the hell it was, in Vancouver, and it's American jets that respond because our jets are in Cold Lake. And our jets are F-18s. And we can't even fly them. We've already lost our sovereignty. All this virtue signaling, it's so empty. It's so vacuous. It's so lacking. And I shouldn't say all of them, but many of the big, prominent conservative influencers, they're just homers. They don't want to tell you the truth about the CPC. They do what's easy. They want to whisper sweet nothings in the ears of their followers rather than tell them the truth. There's a great big crisis of honesty. Canada's this delusional, crazy person. Like a person on the street corner screaming about the end of the world, brought about by reptilian bear pig shapeshifters. We got a huge chip on our shoulder. We got a massive ego. Our hubris is unlimited. We're arrogant. We have this view of ourselves like we're the greatest thing in the world. If I've actually watched videos of Canadians who go on tours overseas, and they complain about the fact that when they display their flag on their backpack, people aren't just coming up to them in the streets and being like, wow, you're Canadian. They feel offended by it because we're so arrogant. Walking around with Canadian flags expecting to be treated like celebrities. What a nation we are that isn't a nation. The post-national nation, as the current government has identified us, with no core cultural identity. And so few people in politics just willing to tell the truth about it or do anything different. It's Sunday. It's a rant. I'm Frank Vaughn. I'll see you in the next one.